Shabbat Shalom. We want to welcome each and every one of you that are here in our teaching center at Olive Tree Fellowship in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And those of you that are coming in through our Torah Unleashed, I thank you for those of you that have subscribed and are hitting that little bell and getting to know that we are on the air. So we want to thank each and every one of you. And I also want to welcome our students. This weekend, we are having our Ulpan, Hebrew Alphabet Ulpan class. We have 15 students that are attending the class to learn Hebrew. Some of them for the first time, some of them refresher. And Brother Jim said he was getting some of the cobwebs getting there. And yeah, you know, one thing about Hebrew or any language is you got to keep it up. And so it's always good to review. And so we're going to be having another class probably in the fall, another beginner's class of the Hebrew Alphabet Ulpan. Be thinking about being part of that. And so that we could get more people to come and read our Torah scrolls. And so we want to thank each and every one of you that has joined us for this Hebrew Ulpan class. It goes from Friday all afternoon on Saturday till tonight, and then tomorrow. And so they'll graduate, and if they do the reading, and there's a reading that's done, and it's a money-back guarantee. So I'm hoping that everybody graduates. Well, we want to welcome you today, and today's teaching and Torah portion is Truma. Say with me, Truma. Now, for those of you Hebrew scholars out there, and those of you that are taking our Ulpan class, you see that this is a Tav, with a Shva, a Resh, a Shuruk Vav, a Mem with a Kamatz, and a final Hey. And so this is pronounced Truma, and it means offering. It actually means a free will offering. This is not a tithe. The tithe is something else, but this is a free will offering. And it's from Exodus 25:1 to 27:19. And today's Parsha begins the study on the tabernacle and the building of the tabernacle. And today's study on Truma is actually several, but I'm only going to do three. Actually, I'm going to do two of them. We're going to do contributions for the sanctuary and the tabernacle and its furnishings with the ark, the table of showbread, the lampstand, the tabernacle fabrics and hangings, the frameworks, the veil, the altar of Holocaust, the courts. All these in past teachings I've done, so they are available on the internet. But one of the things that we're going to be doing is we're going to have here in a few months, we will be announcing this. We are going to have Jim Bibb to come and actually do a study on the actual temple. So this part I'm going to leave off today, so that when we do the study on that, it'll be fresh for every one of you. And then I'm going to talk about why the temple. Why do we have a place on earth for Adonai? Why did he decide to give us this place? And we'll be talking about that. But today's study is contributions for the sanctuary. And again, for those of you that are Hebrew scholars and for our students' sake, today, this says, Davar el bnei Israel, say, or speak to the children of Israel, and tell them to set aside for me, li. The word here, li, right here, set aside, li. That is Adonai speaking for me. Now, one of the first things we need to know about the tabernacle is that the tabernacle is not for the people. The tabernacle is actually for Adonai himself. And it says there that they would do a truma, a contribution, set aside for me. I want this for me. This contribution is my contribution. I want you to give it to me. From every man you will accept, whose heart prompts him to give me a contribution. So all this is for Adonai. And remember, everything is about Adonai. We call it Yom Yahweh, the day of Yahweh. The Sabbath is not really for us. Yes, he gives it to us. In fact, the Sabbath is a gift to mankind. We are told that man was not made for the Sabbath. The Sabbath was made for man. This is Adonai's day. This is his day that he gives as a gift to us, but it's his. It's his day. Everything about Adonai, the tabernacle, it is his place. Now, one of the things that we are told about this truma, this contribution, free will, that it's going to come from the gold, zachav, the gold. I want you to give me gold. Now, where would these people get gold? They were poor slaves. Well, remember when they left Egypt? When they left Egypt, by the way, 200 years before, or 400 years before actually, Abraham had prophesied that they were going to be enslaved, but when they would come out with much blessings. And when they came out of Egypt, the people, the Egyptians gave them, get out of here, take my money, take my gold, take everything, all this. And they went out with a lot of blessings. So they had gold, kesef, silver, bronze, colored stuff, purple stuff, techelet, fine linen, goat hair, ram's skins, leather, acacia wood, oil, spices, chrism, stones, gems. The contribution came in, and by the way, we're going to find out later on that the contributions were coming in. This has never happened before, might never happen again. But the contributions came in so much that Moshe and Yehoshua had to say, stop, you're giving too much. Can you imagine on a Sabbath morning, all of a sudden, all this is coming out, and stop, you guys are giving too much. Now, what was the purpose of the truma? What was the purpose of all this gold? Adonai says, give me your stuff. I want your gold. I want your silver, your bronze. I want ram skins. I want leather. I want wood. I want oil. I want stones. I want gems. I want all this for me. Well, what was the purpose of that? Adonai can't use none of that. He doesn't need it. He has everything. He made everything. He made all these things. He made the gold, the silver. He made the gems. He doesn't need it. What was the purpose of the truma? Why does Adonai want contributions? For me, he said, li, for me. The purpose of it is to make me a sanctuary, a mikdash. He says, make me. I want you to build me a mikdash so that I can dwell among them. You shall make it according to the pattern for the dwelling place. the Mishkan, and the design for its furnishings, which I will now show you. So Adonai says, I want a mikdash, I want a Mishkan, I want a sanctuary, I want a dwelling place. And this sanctuary, this dwelling place, I want you build it according to the pattern. Let's get into some definitions here. First of all, say with me, mikdash. Mikdash means the holy place. Now again, for those of you that have studied Hebrew already, if you look at the word mikdash here, this letter here, a kof, dalet, and a shin, this is the shodesh, this is the root word of where we get all the words that have to do with set apartness, or what we call today holy, or what we call in Latin sacred. That's where we get the word sanctuary. The word sanctuary comes from the Latin sacred, something that is set apart. Holy we use in English. And the mikdash is the holy place. This whole thing was the holy place. And in the holy place, at the one end of the holy place was the Bekodesh HaKodashim, the Holy of Holies. By the way, for those of you that are studying with us this weekend, Mik is one syllable, Dash is a second syllable, and that's a dalet with a dagish. But I want you to see something here. Again, this is a shva, so it's Bekodesh. Bekodesh, that's a holem, that's an O. But I want you to see something here. Remember, we're talking about the kamatz chatuf. We're talking about kamatz chatuf. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just let it go over your head, okay? Just let it go over your head. But those of you that are catching it, those of you that know Hebrew, you're catching it. That's a kamatz chatuf. And that is not chaka. That's chako. This is an O sound. It is a short kamatz, which is an O sound. Chako, and you see right there, it ends chako dashim. So Bekodesh HaKodashim is the Holy of Holies. And again, the root is Kadosh. When we say Kadosh, 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 holy, 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 set apart, set apart, set apart, sacred, 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 santo, 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 in the different languages. And so the word, the holy place, the mikdash, what we're going to call the mikdash, the tabernacle, this edifice is going to be the holy place. And he says there that I may dwell. Say with me, shachan. Shachan is to dwell. And he says, I want to dwell. Now, a dwelling is a place of living. This is not a place that Adonai says, I want to visit with you. Adonai doesn't want to visit with us. And we shouldn't visit with Adonai. To many believers, they have this visiting, and they visit Adonai on Sunday morning for an hour. And sometimes they visit him in prayer if they have a need. Adonai doesn't want your visitation. Adonai doesn't want to visit you. Adonai wants to dwell. He wants to live. Now, when you live with someone, you don't, husbands and wives don't visit each other once a week. They dwell with one another. They shachan. Your family shachan. We shachan with one another. We dwell with one another. A dwelling place is a place where people dwell, live together. And that's what Adonai wants. He wants to dwell with us. So the maker of heaven and earth, the maker of the universe, the one who is the eternal, wants a shachan with a group of people, with his people, with the people that he called out through Avraham, Lech Lecha, to a people that now he's making into a nation. And he says there that this will be his dwelling place. And Shachan, notice just like Mikdash comes from the root of Kadosh, the word Mishkan comes from the root of Shachan. You could see it right there. Shachan and Mishkan, to dwell is Shachan. The dwelling place is the Mishkan. So this will be his dwelling place. This holy place, this Mikdash is going to be his Mishkan. Now, the actual presence of Adonai is called the kavod. The glory is called the kavod. Say it with me, kavod. This is the only word that Adonai uses in Torah. In fact, in the whole of Scripture, this is the only word that Adonai uses for his glory, for his presence. Now, from the word Mishkan and Shachan, in modern times, I'm talking about modern times, a word has been invented that is not biblical. And a lot of even Christians are using this word. In fact, there's some Christian congregations named after this word. But it's not a biblical word, and it's a word that we should not use, because the origins of this word are from Kabbalah. And that word is the word Shekhinah, or Shekhinah, or in English, Shekinah. How many of you ever used the term Shekinah glory? The Shekinah glory. Well, the word glory, kavod, is there, but the word Shekinah is not biblical. So I encourage people not to use. In fact, the Shekinah in Kabbalah and esoteric writings has to do with the feminine aspect of Adonai. The Holy Spirit many times is called the Shekinah in feminine form. And again, this is not a biblical term that we should be using. So I would caution you to, if anybody uses that term, that we not use it. Again, it comes from the word shachan, to dwell. And again, they use it as the dwelling of the glory of Adonai with us. But again, please do not use that word. Now, he says, make sure that you make this mikdash, this mishkan, according to the pattern, according to the design. Now, today we would use the word according to the blueprint. Adonai actually is giving Moshe a tavnit. Say with me, tavnit. 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 A pattern, a blueprint. And he says, this is the way I want you to construct my Mishkan, my Mikdash. I want you to make everything, the lamp, the altar, the table. I want you to make the hangings. I want you to make the curtains. I want you to make the overhang, the awnings. I want you to make the robes for the priests. I want you to make their hats, the hats that the priests wore, the little kippot that they wore. I want you to make all this, the incense. I want you to make the oil, the chrism, the anointing oil. I want you to make everything according to this pattern, according to this that I'm telling you. And it's important that when Adonai says, I want you to make something according to this, that we do that. And they shall make for me a mikdash, and I shall shachan among them. This is the original concept of Immanuel. Immanuel is what it's all about. In fact, Immanuel started at Gan Eden. It started when Adonai actually breathed into the nostrils the breath of life into Adam. And there it was Immanuel, it was Elohim with us, with Adam, with Chava. And Adonai was with them. He walked with them in the garden. And they walked in the cool of the day, they walked. And it was Immanuel, Aloda was with them. Elohim was with them. And again, we broke that with our sin. Innocence and Immanuel always go together. Even how children are, even with their sin, but there's an innocence about them. And Adonai dwells with children. So we need to protect them and be there, because these are Adonai's little souls, and he's Immanuel. And again, there was a separation because of sin with Immanuel. But Adonai was always coming, wanting to join, wanting to dwell with Abraham, with Isaac, with Yaakov. And now, through Moshe, Adonai says, I want to dwell, shachan, with them. I want to be there as they have this journey. And remember, for 40 years, Adonai shachan, dwelt. Adonai was a tent dweller for 40 years. And he dwelt wherever we went. Whenever the cloud took off, we took off. Whenever the cloud stopped, we stopped. And we were with them, and he was with us. Think of the invisible in the visible. Here's a visible mikdash, a sanctuary, a holy place. And the invisible in his kavod is dwelling there. The omnipresent, the word omnipresent is present everywhere. He's the only one that is present everywhere. Nobody is present everywhere. Everybody is present someplace. Chasatan is present someplace. The angels are present someplace. Everything is present someplace. Adonai is omnipresent. He's present everywhere. In a location, in a place. Can you put Elohim in a box? No, you can't. But he made this box called the universe, and then he made this box called the Mishkan, because he says, I want to dwell, Immanuel, I want to be Immanuel with them. How can Elohim, in a finite place, his infinite presence, his infiniteness, his Elohutness, The Elohut of Adonai, how could it be put in a location, in a place? Why would Elohim require of man that which is impossible? This is something that, how could you, it's impossible. It can't hold him. But we'll see what his intentions are all about. The Mikdash and Mishkan is important. Actually, it's repeated twice in full detail. I want you to do this. This is what was done. In Exodus 25 and Exodus 36 are two places where if you want to learn about the Mikdash, Mishkan, which we are going to be learning here in the future, these are the two main places. And remember what he said. He says, make everything exactly according to the pattern, the blueprint, the tavnit. Make everything according to the tavnit. And it says, and Moshe did all that Yahweh had said. You shall do this, and Moshe did exactly. He followed the pattern. He followed the blueprint. This is the place of his dwelling with Israel. This was Immanuel. This was Immanuel. This was Elohim with us, with his people. Now, later on, David, the tabernacle was now back in Jerusalem. The Ark of the Covenant was in Jerusalem. And David, by that time, everyone was no longer living in tents, but they were living in houses. David himself was living in a palace. And he says at this time that I am living in the house of cedar wood, while the ark of Elohim is under awnings. Now, to David, the tabernacle of Moshe, the Mishkan, the Mikdash, to him, because he was a modern man living in a palace, and everybody was living in houses. Only those people out there, the shepherds and all those people, they're living in tents still, but they're old-fashioned. They're still out there, and they're hillbilly type people. But we're moderns. And if we're moderns, how could Elohim be living in that shambles? And by that time, it was probably old, and it probably needed repair. And so what David decides to do is make a cheichal for him, a temple made out of stone, so that this cheichal might be his mikdash, his sanctuary, his mishkan, his dwelling place. But again, Elohim said to David, you must not build a house, a chabait. By the way, every time that the temple, the cheichal is called chabait, the house, chabait Yahweh, or chabait Elohim, the house of Elohim, or in King James speak, the house of God. You must not build a house for my name, for you have been a man of war and have shed blood. Your hands are stained with blood. You can't build me. So the plans that Adonai gave David gave to his son Shlomo, or Solomon, and it was Solomon who built the first cheichal, the first temple. And this temple, this cheichal, was to be Now the Mikdash, this was to be the Mishkan, the sanctuary, the dwelling place of Adonai. And there in 1 Kings 4, 21 through 9:25, you have the building of the Heichal. Now, this next slide is actually, I brought it over from one of my other teachings, and this is just the outline of the dwelling places, all the dwelling places that Adonai has had. And this is actually a whole study in of itself. We can't even begin to look at this, but there are 7 dwelling places of Adonai, 7 different dwelling places of Adonai. And the first one is, of course, the tabernacle of Moses, or the Mikdash Moshe. This was the first dwelling place where Adonai dwelt with us. Of course, the second one was the temple of Solomon. We call this the first temple. The second was the temple of Zerubbabel. Solomon's temple in 586 was destroyed by the Babylonians, if you remember. We went to captivity for 70 years, and Ezra and Nehemiah 7 years later came back, and through Zerubbabel built a second temple. But notice that I call this the second temple A, second temple Aleph. And this temple lasted from right afterwards, about 530 or so, and it lasted till the time of the 1st century with Herod. Now, when Herod came on the scene, Herod renovated this temple. What he actually did was Zerubbabel's temple, Solomon's temple was really big. That was destroyed. So Zerubbabel came, and they built a smaller, modest little Heichal. And what Herod did is he built his temple over that one, and then he had this little one taken apart. And Herod's temple became known as the Second Temple Beit, or the Second Temple B. It's still called the Second Temple period. The Temple of Zerubbabel and the Temple of Herod are called the Second Temple period. But there's 2 aspects of that: the Zerubbabel temple and Herod's new temple. And of course, Herod not only rebuilt the temple, but he expanded the square Temple Mount. He made it from a square and expanded it on north, south, and west, so it could hold. And pretty much the temple of Yeshua, the temple where Yeshua was Herod's temple. And so that would be what we would call the second temple, but the 4th dwelling place. The 5th dwelling place is going to be the temple in the tribulation period. We call this the 3rd temple. And this is the temple that the anti-Messiah will desecrate. And remember, the temple that is being built right now and people are looking for is going to probably be this 5th dwelling place. And this will be a Mikdash and a Mishkan. The kavod of Adonai is going to dwell in this temple. How do we know that the kavod is going to dwell in this temple? Because when the anti-Messiah comes in, one of the things that's going to happen is there's going to be an abomination of desolation. What is an abomination of desolation? An abomination of desolation is something so horrible, so ugly, so bad. In this case, the statue of the anti-Messiah, which will speak in the holy place, that the kavod of Adonai will leave the temple. Remember what happened with Solomon's temple? The kavod left the temple and went east towards the Mount of Olives. And as the kavod leaves the temple and goes to the Mount of Olives, the kavod turns around. The glory of Adonai turns around and sees how it has been desecrated by the sin. They were actually doing, if you remember, they were doing sunrise services for Ishtar, Easter, on that day. And they were making cakes for the Queen of Heaven and doing all those abominations. And all of a sudden, the kavod of Adonai left the temple and left. And then the Babylonians came and destroyed it. In the time of Zerubbabel, after the time of Zerubbabel, in the intertestamental period, we know what happened. Antiochus came to Zerubbabel's temple, and he desecrated it. And what happened there is an abomination of desolation also took place if you study Daniel and if you study the history in the 2 books of Maccabees. And from then on, we don't know that the kavod ever came back. Nobody ever talks about the kavod in Herod's temple, although Yeshua called it my Father's house. But was the kavod there? I don't know, and I don't know anyone that does know. But this is the anti-Messiah will desecrate this temple, and an abomination of desolation, according to Daniel 9:27, according to Matthew 24:15, is going to take place. But we also know that there is the temple of Ezekiel, which I call the 4th temple. This will be the Messianic Heichal. This will be the Messianic Mishkan, Mikdash, where Yeshua will build this in the millennium for 1,000 years. This will be after the Great Tribulation, after the resurrection, after all this, and for 1,000 years, there will be a Messianic temple. This is Ezekiel 40 and following. And there's going to be a 7th dwelling place, the eternal dwelling place. Now, if you read Revelation 21, it says there that in that holy city, in the new Jerusalem, the dwelling of Adonai is going to come down, and the throne is going to come, and he's going to dwell with us here. We're not going to heaven. Everybody has this idea that we're going to heaven. We're not going to heaven. Heaven's coming to us. The throne, and Adonai, we're not going to live with him. He's going to dwell with us. And he says there's going to be no Heichal there. There's going to be no temple there for El Elyon and the Lamb. The Most High and the Lamb are the temple thereof. And again, this one slide is a whole seminar that we've given. Again, Stephen, in his eloquence right before he died, talks about the same thing, that the Most High does not live in a house that humans have built. As for the prophet said, with heaven my throne and earth my footstool, what house could you build for me, says Yahweh? What place for me to rest when all these things are made by me? But yet Adonai says, make this according to the pattern. Well, what pattern? What, when an architect has this blueprint, or you make a sketch of what you want, this is what you want. Well, what Adonai actually did is he got his throne room in heaven, where he dwells in the heavens, and he actually gave that pattern to Moshe. So what Moshe built, the tabernacle and the later temples, are built on the pattern that Adonai had from his existence, where he lives, where he is. And it's only a copy. What we have is a copy. But again, this was just temporary, but we will dwell with him in the eternal forever and ever and ever. The earthly Mikdash versus the heavenly one, Hebrews says, although these maintain, talking about the Kohanim, the Kohen, the priest, maintain the service only of a model or a reflection of the heavenly realities. Just as Moses, when he had the Mikdash to build, was warned by Elohim, who said, see that you work to the pattern that was shown to you on the mountain. So the pattern, this is a model, this is a reflection, this is a shadow of the real one in the heavens. Only the copies in Hebrews 9, only the copies, these are copies of heavenly things are purified in this way. The heavenly things themselves have to be purified by a higher sort of sacrifice than this. It is not as though Messiah entered a man-made Mikdash, which was merely a model of the real one. He entered heaven itself, so that he now appears in the presence of Elohim on our behalf. The priests entered a model, a shadow. They entered this for temporary relief. Yeshua entered the real one. The real one is the presence of Adonai. And that's the one that we will spend eternity, everlasting life in, the real one. The copies are good, they're okay, but they're not the real one. And we still have some copies to go. In fact, the copy of the Ezekiel temple is probably going to be more in line with the one that we will be in with El Elyon and the Lamb forever and ever. Then the Mikdash of Elohim in heaven opened, and the Ark of the Covenant could be seen inside it. After this, in my vision, the Mikdash, the tent of the testimony, opened in heaven. So heaven has the real one. Do you not know that you are the Mishkan of Elohim, and the Spirit of Elohim, Shachan, dwells in you? If anybody should destroy the Mikdash of Elohim, Elohim will destroy that person, because the Mikdash of Elohim is holy, and you are that Mishkan. This is why we should take care of our bodies, physically, spiritually, soulishly. That's why we should not, even the smallest amount of graffiti on our body, we should reject. No tattoos. That's graffiti in the Mishkan. Can you imagine going even to a physical building? Even though a government building, a church building, a cathedral, the Vatican, the place that, these other temples that other people have. Are we going to go and spray graffiti over them and put this and this and that? No, we're not. We would not do that. We would not do that to our cars. We would not even do that to our houses. Why would we do it to our Mishkan? Why do we allow our Mishkan to do awful things, dirty things, improper things? We are his Mishkan. In fact, see also there 1 Corinthians 6:18-20. This we will do in the future with Brother Jim. He's going to show us all this and what their meaning is. Why should we study the Mishkan, the tabernacle? Elohim commanded his people to build the Mishkan. If Adonai said build the Mishkan, then that's part of our history. That's part of something that it's important to him, it should be also important to us. That was at that time. We are in this time now. We're going to be at another time, and we'll be at an eternal time. But every time, every period, everything that Adonai has done, it just stacks up one another. Adonai doesn't give this and then take it away and plan B. Oh, plan B failed. Let's go to plan C. Oh, no, Adonai doesn't work that way. Everything is foundational, and on that foundation, he builds. And every aspect of the Mishkan Mikdash, of the temple, is just as important today, because one thing you're going to see, it all points to Yeshua. It's all about Yeshua. That's why when Yeshua said to the Pharisees, you search the scriptures, you search Torah. Moses wrote of me. The scriptures are of me. It's me that, when he was talking about the Mishkan, the holy place, this is of me. Elohim's name resided in the Mikdash Mishkan. This is the place where he gave his name a home. Elohim commanded his people to study it. In Ezekiel 43, Yahweh tells Ezekiel to explain to the people the layout of the temple. This is the way it was. This is where this was. This is where this is. This is what it should be like. That they may be ashamed of our iniquities, our Torahlessness, and repent or return to a spiritual relationship with him. The teaching of the Heichal, the teaching of the Mishkan, of the Mikdash, is a place of holiness, and it should lead us. If we are not following in the way, it should lead us to Adonai. The Mikdash Mishkan was a spiritual center for the nation of Israel. They were centered on this, from wherever they went in the wilderness to when it was in Shiloh, when it was at the house of Obed-Edom, when it came to the temple with David, Solomon's temple, Zerubbabel's temple, Herod's temple, and right now the place is being desecrated by something else. But that place belongs to the Mikdash of Adonai, and it's going to come whether anybody likes it or not, whether there's war or not, because Adonai demands it. It has to be one nation under Yahweh. The Mikdash was a monument to Elohim's sovereignty, where he dwelt. This is a place where you commune with him. This is where the covenant was renewed. This was a place where atonement for sin was done. This is the place where we would come for the Regelim, the feast of Adonai. So then you Gentile believers are no more strangers or sojourners, but you are fellow citizens with the Jewish believers and of the household of Elohim, being built upon the foundation of the apostles and prophets, Mashiach Yeshua himself being the chief cornerstone, in whom each several building fitly framed together are growing into a Mikdash in Yahweh, in whom you also are built together for a Mishkan for Elohim in the Spirit. So Gentile believers, Jewish believers form the Mishkan, the Mikdash of Adonai in Yeshua. Think about that. There's no separation. There's no us and them. As they are the firstborn sons and we are the adopted sons, we are together. We receive the same inheritance. Let's close with some snow scenes of Jerusalem. Look at that, the Western Wall. Look at that scene. Woo! Snowing in Jerusalem. I'm dreaming of a white Purim, just like the Purims we had before. Purim is coming. Everybody getting ready for Purim? Woo! Look at that. Let's go and stand. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us. And as we get ready for the continuation of our Aleph Bet Ulpan seminar this weekend, and we're going to have an oneg. And Father, Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Blessed are you, Adonai, King of the universe. You've given us bread from the earth. And I thank you for each and every one of our students here today and those that are studying with us on the internet. And I ask blessings upon them. I thank you, Father, for what you are doing in our lives. Yevarechecha Yahweh va'ishmerecha. Ayid Yahweh panav elecha v'chunecha. Asa Yahweh panav elecha, vayasem lecha shalom. May Yahweh bless you and keep you. May Yahweh make his face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May Yahweh lift up the light of his countenance upon you and give you his peace. Shalom, shalom. Shavua tov. Have a good week.
Shalom, shalom. Welcome to Olive Tree Fellowship and Torah Unleashed Ministries. Thank you for joining us on our channel. If you have enjoyed this teaching and would like to see more, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Don't forget to click the notification bell so that you can be notified when we have new videos. If you would like to support Olive Tree Fellowship and Torah Unleashed Ministries, please visit us at olivetreefellowship.com or TorahUnleashed.org. We thank you for your past support and hope to continue with you. Shalom, shalom. Have a good day.